So the third guy from the chemical industry. The two other speakers, they went very nicely into details on REACH, and I would like to give you an overview on other changes or challenges that will have to be managed when it comes to sustainable business. And before we put our focus on these topics, please allow me to give me a very brief introduction of Huntsman business. I think you see we have 4 business units. A 5th one has just been spun off under the company name of Veneter. And what I really want to mention is that in Textile Effects, we put our focus clearly on innovation and more specifically on developing products that are related to environmental sustainability. So more than half of our projects are targeted on environmental sustainability. We hold about 700 patents, launch continuously new products. So 25% of our portfolio consists of young products and that are less than 5 years old. We spend 5% of our sales revenue on innovation, and our R&D teams work out of 4 R&D centers. This as a short introduction of the company. So industry challenge, delivering economic and environmental sustainability. I think I'm not wrong if I say the only constant factor in the industry are the constant changes we are facing. So starting from the economical side, we can see an increased cost pressure from retailers to mills as consumers are looking for more and more bargains. And we can see an increase in cotton prices, leading to retailers and mills switching more and more to polyester cotton blends or in order to reduce costs. And furthermore, we see a general growth of synthetic fiber since years as consumers don't rate polyester as cheap fiber anymore. Now, on the environmental side, in recent years, there has been an increased number of new voluntary schemes, either introduced by independent organizations or by individual brands. And also the implementation of REACH, as we heard, has led to a more complex environment to run the business and to develop our products further. This challenge has several stakeholders whose perspective may differ. For us as a chemical industry, it is critical to understand the needs, intentions and limitations to find opportunities for our technologies, products, concepts, and to develop what will be needed in the future. This value model is alive and very actively running in our organization. Our goal is to contribute with our know-how and expertise and respond to what is needed. Beside our daily contact with textile processing mill, we have set up a sustainability council with global perspective to set the right direction. We got a full REACH department in place, of course a product stewardship team, and last but not least, a brand and retail team that works closely with the brands to really understand the needs in the market. And this picture looks simple, but here's a high complexity involved that needs to be well managed. Complexity is increased, for example, through the constantly growing number of voluntary schemes. Today we speak already about 250 schemes who try to position and differentiate themselves, even though the objectives are very close to each other, and this makes the challenge even tougher. So I will try now to position a selection of voluntary schemes, and this picture should visualize the tasks of some well-known schemes a little bit. On the vertical axis, we differentiate RSL and MRSL. RSL set the limits to chemical substances on final textiles, as you know, and MRSL set the limits of selected substances in dyes and chemicals. RSL limits are typically lower than MRSL limits. We should then differentiate hazard-based schemes and risk-based schemes. Hazard-based schemes only evaluate if a chemical substance in the product itself bears a hazard, like the hazard classification and the safety data sheet, without considering the amount applied and its exposure. For example, green screen here. Risk-based schemes, on the other side, measure the risk to workers and consumers on textiles and or in dyes and chemicals by evaluation of the exposure level of the hazardous substances, like we heard from Oecotech's standard 100, for example. I like one example that explains the difference nicely. It's a sharp knife. A sharp knife per se is a hazardous instrument, and its sharpness is needed to achieve a certain effect. The sharp knife in the drawer shouldn't be a problem. The sharp knife becomes a risk if we do not manage its exposure or its exposition. If it falls into the hands of little children or other people who are not trained to handle it. So therefore my preference is clearly on the risk-based view, where we do not ban sharp knives per se and cause headaches in many daily situations, but where we manage their exposure and educate people how to use them. I flip now a little bit. So we can further differentiate industry schemes and brand schemes. Brand scheme is introduced and controlled by the brand itself. Some brand schemes utilize nominated test houses. Industry schemes are not introduced by independent organizations, not tied to an individual brand, but industry schemes can be adopted by brands or mills, chemical suppliers, in addition to own RSLs and MRSLs. So some industry schemes are based on annual membership or maintenance fees. Further, there are, and you see it in the center here, associations which do not issue an RSL or MRSL, but they are lobbying for the interest of the chemical industry. I put here Tegeva as the German organization. I think Federchimica would be the right one, in Italy. So often the same substances are listed in most of the schemes. However, they have often different limits, thresholds or testing protocols defined, which result in repetition of tests and increases the cost to the textile mill or to the chemical supplier. And it drives the complexity. We will see that on the next slide. I should mention from Huntsman's side that we are collaborating with several voluntary schemes, and more specifically with Blue Science, ZDHC, ChemIQ, Inditex, or Oecotex 100. And we are not closing the dialogue with other schemes when credibility, trust, competence, independence, and business model is conformed to our values. So now a few words on the mentioned complexity as we see it today, and which can affect the efforts and the ability to develop sustainable technologies in reasonable time. The textile manufacturers have to deal with multiple schemes they produce for multiple brands. They will have to provide additional time and resources for documentation, retention, and audits. And yes, there are additional costs associated through selective testing costs and membership fees. On the chemical industry side, equally, the number of different schemes causes complexity, since we see different impurity limits and procedures between the schemes. Some MRSLs even hinder the use of best available technology. And on this side as well, the high testing costs for many schemes plus multiple membership fees. All this can slow down the value chain to move to true environmental, sustainable, or even greener technology. But to operate sustainably and responsibly, it requires much more. It's about reducing our environmental footprint at every stage, from product design, manufacturing, supply and storage, the use of chemicals, and the use of final textiles by consumers and the recycling of the goods. To achieve this, we work closely with our customer suppliers and others in the supply chain to ensure that they understand the EHS opportunities relating to our products well enough. We manage our product stewardship with high efforts, and we gave it even a sharper attention as one of the strategic focus areas in our business. So let's now have a look at 2 or 3 areas very quickly where constant product development is key to respond to the industry changes. And this is, the first one is a well-known dyes innovation that enables to significantly reduce water and energy consumption. Second one is the area of DWR, durable water repellents, where the industry pressure for a technology shift from PFC, perfluorinated compounds, to PFC-free or non-fluorinated alternatives takes place. And inkjet printing has significant environmental advantages in certain areas, and we are continuously developing also for this technology. Recently, Ecotextile published this news: water is the top concern for textile industry executives, and we are requested to find technologies that are using less or no water at all. So we see that even though we have talked about water and water saving, energy saving for many years, it's very high up on the agenda of a lot of retailers and other organizations associated to the textile industry. Fresh water is very scarce, it's very rare, only 0.003%, 0.00% of all water in the world is available for drinking, hygiene, agriculture, industry, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. And I just wanted to share two facts which grabbed my attention from the recent update of the drinking water fact sheet published by the WHO. The report highlights that globally at least 2 billion people use contaminated drinking water. And furthermore, they mentioned that by 2025, half of the world's population will be living in water-stressed areas. So we as an industry player with high water dependence must take a holistic view on our operations and take efforts to save water wherever possible. And reducing our own consumption and optimizing our processes are important initiatives. But of course, it is our responsibility to provide innovative products, to save water resources in textile mills, and herewith tackle the global water crisis. So here is just an example of a good dye stuff range that has been introduced already 6 years ago, but has been developed since then to a very important pillar in our dyes portfolio. Its success builds on the ability to significantly save water. I assume that the majority of you, especially those from the industry, has seen this slide in one or the other form already, because we gave a couple of seminars in the past on this. However, let me just remind you that so far none other chemical suppliers introduced such a range of products. And yes, there are suppliers packing something like that into new ranges, but these Avitera SE dyes are really new products designed to save water and energy without compromising on the operational excellence. And beside that, we shouldn't forget that the products are compliant with the legislation and restricted substance lists, of course. So the success of this range is built on water and energy saving. You can read by yourself to what extent, but also on the shorter processing time. Another important concern which I would like to pick out is the use of PFC for durable water repellents, so perfluorinated compounds for durable water repellent finishes. The pressure from the NGOs such as Greenpeace continues to intensify, especially on the brands, and the target is clear: a complete transition away from the use of PFC chemistry, especially in the sportswear and outdoor industry, where fluorocarbon finishes were state-of-the-art for decades. So as I said earlier, the textile industry is facing some tough times right now, especially with regards to economic and environmental needs. This is very likely to continue for the foreseeable future, and we can see a huge paradigm shift from the use of conventional chemistries to water and energy efficient technologies, and to more greener, sustainable and smarter chemistry. And from finishing perspective, a major transition takes place in DWR finishes. So I got 2 more minutes. So I will flip a little bit over those slides to not further delay the lunch. But I think the question I should raise is how we are all going to solve these challenges when it comes to PFCs. And we have set our focus on the dedicated use and the development of alternatives to fluorocarbons through non-fluorinated durable water repellents. And in which areas we can replace PFCs and achieve the needed repel or release functions. It's more important that we ask ourselves, what do we really need? If we define the protection that is required, we can make a first selection from the technology classes PFC and PFC-free. And under PFC, we differentiate active protection, passive protection, and washout stains easily, and the combination of both. Under non-fluorinated technologies, we must understand whether water repellency or repellency of water-based stain or stain release is required. So these effects can be achieved with different chemistries, and this is actually a chart I wanted to show with you without going more into details. But what PFC products have in common is, and this is what we need to understand, is that they don't give real oil repellency. But depending on the end use, there are selections possible and effects possible, like paraffin-based products, for example, show a very good water repellency and waterproof function, but do not give durability, which may be required for the end use. Without going into the others, if we know exactly what we need, we can make a selection of the proper chemistry that may fulfill the needs for our purpose, for our fabric. A little bit advertisement, which I can drop. Another sustainable technology to which we contribute with our know-how and products is the industrial inkjet printing, textile inkjet printing. And beside advantages like flexibility with shorter lead times and high production efficiency, the technology got a lower impact on the environment. In a nutshell, we see here from fiber to fiber, we can reduce power consumption of 55%, up to 85% waste material saving, 60% lower water consumption, and a significant improvement of the carbon footprint by reducing the CO2 emission. So good reasons for us to invest further into such technologies. And I hope I gave you very quickly now in a rush a few examples and show you how seriously we take the challenges of the industry to deliver economic and environmental sustainability. I don't want to go through these bullets here in detail, but if you're looking for partners in the industry who provide you not only with textile chemicals, dyes and inks, but also know-how to ensure that you achieve what is needed in terms of sustainability, then please speak to us. And let me end with a quote from the founder of Patagonia, which I like on one side, because it doesn't always mean if we invest more into sustainability that we reduce our competitiveness. It can be even the opposite. Thanks a lot for your attention.